Hello, it's a beautiful but little rainy day here in Greenwich, Connecticut. This is Trevor Crow, and you're on Trevor and Friends. We have a nice lineup for you today, really fun. Sitting next to me is a Greenwich resident, Heidi Matonis. She is a writer and an entrepreneur, so welcome, Heidi. How are you?
I'm great. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad you're sitting here with me. So, Heidi's an entrepreneur, so you might know her. She used to have Heidi's Real Food. She has recently stepped away from that, but in the meantime, she has been very busy. She wrote 3 books, and one's called Hatching Love, the second is Imagining Monticello, and the third is Nitro. And as I said, you know, this show is about relationships and politics and the intersection of the two of them. So I'm actually going to start with the middle book just because it's fascinating. It's called Imagining Monticello. And Heidi, tell me a little bit. First of all, this woman's imagination is just incredible. So talk to me a little bit about Imagining Monticello and how Thomas Jefferson and John Adams comes into play and why it's so similar. The political situation today is similar to those days back then.
Okay, I'd love to, Trevor. So I was addicted to listening to a podcast, History That Doesn't Suck. And
Love it.
I would listen to it while I jogged with my dog in Miamis.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I was jogging and I literally stopped on the trail and I thought, wait, what am I listening to? I was so wrapped up in the podcast and I forgot he was talking about the 1800s. And I felt like I was listening to something that was currently happening. And he was talking about the contentious what is the word?
Campaigns, race?
The contentious campaign in 1800 between John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. And particularly what caught my ear was the fake news of if Thomas Jefferson gets elected, you know, you New Englanders better go bury your Bibles because he's
Unbelievable.
going to claim them. Also, there was violence on the floor. And anyway,
They actually fought each other in the Senate. They hit one another. I think one guy got caned.
Yep.
Right?
That was like
the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, it was lively, shall we say. And it was very contentious between the two. And so it just made me want to tie in what is happening currently to back then.
Yes, interesting. And there's so much of that today, whether it's fake news or this polarization and truly there's violence. There's an underlying feeling of violence out there, which is very scary to me, of course. But you weave this story, this sort of John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, into a thriller, which I think is really fascinating. How did you do that?
Well, I don't read a lot of thrillers, I have to tell you, because a lot of times I find the setup and the premise kind of weak, especially when they have women in them as the main character.
What a shocker.
Yeah, these women, you know, they have it all together and then they drink one too many glasses of wine and they don't remember what happened and all hell breaks loose.
My.
Exactly. And I went back and, you know, I was reading what was current, etc. And I decided to make a really smart woman, and her name is Sarah Stevens, and she's a history professor.
Cool.
And she gets kidnapped by these Cell.
Ooh, bad.
Yeah, and she gets held hostage. And her captor is very creative and very quick learner. He didn't have the chance to further his education. And she begins to believe she's Sally Hemings and he is Thomas Jefferson.
Okay, that is an interesting combination. And just an aside, right, isn't her son killed by that particular Cell that grabs her? So that relationship, just if anybody understands or knows what happened with Thomas Jefferson and his enslaved woman, her name was Sally Hemings. She was not a mistress because she had no choice in this, but at the age of 14, she was his dead wife's half-sister. He started sleeping with her. He was 45 or so at the time, maybe 42. He even built a special room in Monticello that they discovered about 8 or 10 years ago, where she and her he had 6 children with him that we know of, and he freed one of them who became a chef. He actually brought them all to France. But just a reminder, people, that that we, as a country, we enslaved people. She was basically a sex slave. She was not a mistress. And that was a very complicated relationship. And she was with him all the way to the end. I think for both of them. I don't think he freed her.
No, he never did free her. I believe her two daughters went on and lived as free people, but they were so white you couldn't even tell. Anyway, without giving it away, the end is really, really good, because there's also an Adams character that comes into play.
We love John Adams and his wife Abigail.
And it's a lot of fun, and it's smart. It's a smart thriller. So if you want to learn a little about history and have a strong female character, and maybe, you know what, I didn't imagine parts of Greenwich in this where the bombing takes place.
Oh,
so you can use your imagination and figure out what I had in my mind.
Wow. Okay. Imagining Monticello. Remember Heidi Matonis? She is a Greenwich resident, very talented writer, and it's just great to have you in the studio today. Now, the next book, which I want to kind of look at, which is just beyond adorable, and I love, because Heidi walked in and she said, "This is really springy," and we finally have spring here. And the title of this is called Hatching Love, a novel by Heidi Matonis. So, Heidi, tell us about the premise of Hatching Love.
Well, first I want to give a shout out to my daughter, who's a graphic artist. She did design the cover of all these books.
They look great.
Yes, thank you. So during the pandemic, my son just sent me a YouTube video, and it's called Hatching an Egg with Your Body. And
love it.
I watched it over and over, and this gentleman who lives in England, I believe.
No, did he have to sit still like a duck, or did he have?
He created a hatching belt.
A hatching belt.
So the website is in the book. It's on the back cover, but literally, if you go to YouTube and you put in hatching an egg with your body, I think it might have like 21 million views or something. Like,
I love it.
It's really incredible. So he builds this little belt and he puts the egg in, and he wears it for 29 days.
And you can't take it off, right? Can you shower, or?
I think in the video he said he took it off to shower, but it's really cute because like this little music plays and he checks his egg when he's in the grocery store and things like that. So I loved the premise. So I thought of a story where a woman, her husband drops dead suddenly in the driveway, a catastrophic heart attack.
Oh dear, sorry.
And no, don't feel sorry. He was a narcissist.
Oh.
And they did have a great relationship, but she's looking for love and he's still within the house and he doesn't want her to move on.
Oh.
So the conflict is, how does she move on with her life?
Interesting. So she decides, after watching this video, to
hatch an egg. She thinks she orders one, but a dozen come. And it is a fact that when you get these eggs delivered, because my family has hatched eggs, not using her body, but an incubator, you let them sit at room temperature for 24 to 48 hours before you begin hatching them.
Okay.
So she has 48 hours to find other people willing to do this with her.
Oh my gosh.
And she puts an ad on Facebook and calls it her happiness project. And people, unlikely people, answer her call. And she decides to wear 2 eggs because she says, if Tom was here, he'd hatch an egg with me. And all along he's like, no, I wouldn't. And then, anyway, he has a very snide voice and he's telling the story. But his redemption, I will say, comes when he follows the other people through their trials and tribulations on like why they would embark on this experiment.
Very amazing and kind of loving, and to the basis of this whole show is we're here and we're collaborating. We got to do all this together, and we got to figure out solutions and loving approach to hatching eggs, which is a metaphor for everything that we're doing out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's some really special relationships that come out of this connection of the egg. and also what animals do to us in our nature, and
Beautiful.
letting them in our lives.
Now, is there any part of you that wanted to personally do the egg belt and hatch
Oh
your
yeah,
own egg?
don't think I didn't try.
Was it difficult?
It was really hard, and my egg didn't live. And
Oh,
I
no.
ordered 3 times.
Oh no.
I don't know how the hell he did it.
Well, it's such a cool story, and again, this show, the work that I do, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm going to plug myself right now, trevorcrow.com. I do couples, individuals, and families, but I am all about how we can do things together. We need to align. We need to be team members. Nobody is out there and does anything alone. So just that's, the opposite of one political group versus the one that I lean towards, which tends to be the color blue. But just sort of going on to the next book, which is really fascinating, and I'm not really much of a science person myself, but even in my brief conversation with Heidi, she has written a 3rd book as well, which when do you have time to do this? She was telling me she's quite disciplined. When do you write, actually?
I spring out of bed at 5.
Oh my God.
And this morning was 4. I was so excited to get up and work.
Oh my God. So, at what age did you know that you had this writer gene? Well, when did you know this?
Oh, this is really funny. I didn't. I never even thought about writing a book. And then my daughter said to me during the pandemic, randomly, Mom, you should try journaling. And I really dislike short stories, like short things I don't like. And so the next morning, for whatever reason, I said, I'm going to write a book.
And you started with Hatching Love?
No, I wrote a book, I call it my practice book, about 2 women, and I kind of based it on like what would be, the character would have been my best friend going into the Midwest.
You've never had that feeling of like opening up your laptop and looking at a blank page and going, oh my goodness, like...
No.
I
always have
love that.
always have the next idea percolating, and I have to like put it. I have to try to like not dive into the next thing too fast.
So there's some part of, in my mind, a divine aspect of creativity. Like it comes to you rather than you grab it. Is that true? Is this something that just you wake up and you're like, oh, there's the story?
I kind of think so.
Yeah.
I kind of think that it would be a really scary thing if I didn't have another idea.
These are incredible ideas.
I'm working on a really complicated trilogy right now, and
wow.
And it's going great. And like I swear I'm living my life with just like one foot in this life and the other foot in the character life.
That's really cool. I happen to be lucky enough to interview Elizabeth Gilbert at one point.
She is like my favorite.
Oh, she's amazing. She's so smart. Oh my God.
So big magic is like our Bible. And my daughters do creative things too. And we're like, well, like in Big Magic, like
yes.
It's like.
Oh, it was still to this day one of my very luckiest moments. It was for WSHU, which is up at Sacred Heart University. But she had told a story about what the creative process is, and she knew a woman. I can't remember. It's a writer. I'm not going to come to it.
It was Barbara. I think it was Barbara Kingsolver.
Maybe.
And it was about the story of the jungle, and where she was thinking of writing a book, and then the other woman wrote it, and she said, "You stole my idea."
No,
she didn't steal the idea because it's like.
But I think I know that story too. But this was about this when this woman was a young girl. She was sitting in a tree, and all of this ideas and words like went over her head like a cloud. And then it went past her, and she ran into the house, and she wrote the story backwards because she was worried about like getting the story in before it went by her too quickly. Like it's such a fascinating thing of these ideas that are so important and grab us, and storytelling is truly important to our human experience. And again, it's a great connector when we hear somebody else's pain and sometimes pleasure and all those things. That's how we know that we're not alone, right?
No, it's great. Storytelling is wonderful. And Elizabeth Gilbert, wow, I'm jealous.
That was cool. All right, so Nitro, tell us about Nitro.
Well, I got really obsessed with the nitrogen cycle, which is kind of strange in itself. There's a book called The Alchemy of Air.
How cool. That never occurred to me to be obsessed about, but how cool is that?
And Yeah, don't even get me when people say when I start to talk about nitrogen, I say don't even get me going. And if my husband was here, he'd say don't even get her going. I start spewing the facts and just the facts. But I had a really hard time writing this book because I wanted to make it interesting. I wanted other people to want to read about the nitrogen cycle, and specifically Fritz Haber, who was the German chemist who invented the Haber-Bosch process. And
Incredible.
I didn't know how to make it palatable, yummy, approachable. So it is actually a braided narrative where I take 3 science advancements, each 100 years apart. It's
interesting.
Frankenstein by Mary Shelley.
Oh, we love Mary Shelley.
Which is considered actually the first sci-fi book.
Yep, and she was a feminist, people. She was way ahead of her time.
Way ahead of her time. And then Fritz Haber, which happened about 100 years later, and then AI.
Oh, interesting.
And I take these 3 advancements because I was really thinking, does man make monsters, or are we the monsters? So that was
brilliant question.
That was like the question I really was, and boy, I didn't know where that was going to go.
Well, AI could be the ultimate Frankenstein, right? I hope that we won't ruin our entire world, but I doubt it. I think we're smart enough and caring enough. Please, God, support me on that one. Goddess says. But yeah, it's fascinating. So between these 3 books, Nitro, Imagining Monticello, Hatching Love, what do you think is the through line between, because they're all such different books and feels, like what is it that brings them all together for you and your experience?
Not to use your word, but it's really about relationships, because I'm really the most fascinated about the subtlety, about the interaction of all these people and characters.
So cool. I love thinking about that too.
And kind of presenting them in a very subtle way. I do not like, some of the writing out there. I feel like they're just spoon feeding you all these tropes and whatnot.
Right. They become sort of flattened characters. You really don't get the sense of their experience as human beings, really. But yeah, I love that. And these, again, each of these stories is so different and fascinating. And you've got a woman who is in deep trouble imagining her life with this man. And then you have nitrogen. And how do we understand that? And that me as just a regular person who didn't really do very well in science, I could see reading that book, right?
Oh, you will learn something, but also there's this character Georgia who I think is very relatable, and my husband's reading it now, and he's like, I'm really liking Georgia and her one-eyed cat, and yeah, so and there's a little romance woven in.
Oh, we need a little romance.
Yeah. So it is, it's palatable. It's yummy. It's a good appetizer.
So fun. Well, so Heidi, where do people find you and your books?
Oh, well, everything is always on Amazon. Hatching Love is also on Audible.
Ooh, Audible. Love it. Okay. Do you have a website?
Yeah, HeidiMatonis.com.
Great.
Instagram, Facebook, all of those things. TikTok.
Fantastic. Now, you did mention you had a food company. You are an entrepreneur in different aspects. So you shut that down how long ago? Is it pre-pandemic?
No, I shut it down at the end of last year.
Oh, so it's truly recent. How are you? Are you mourning the loss of it? Are you happy?
I mourned it about the 2 months before I closed it down, knowing that I think at the end of the year I'm going to close it down. And then I've slept like a baby.
Oh, congratulations. That's always a good feel. And you did mention that now that we have all these tariffs and quite a bit of your food products, or part of them, were coming from overseas, and luckily now you're not going to have to grapple with the concerns and fears of extremely high tariffs and having to move your prices higher.
Oh yeah, and I just have to say too that my products were plant-based. I did meatless meatballs in different ethnic flavors, and the whole plant-based category is down 30 to 40%.
Oh my goodness.
So
why is that?
Well, first of all, there's not a lot of focus on the carbon and the water, and
I see the footprint,
the
etc.
food system. I
Got
mean,
it.
that's been just totally, forget about it. Nobody's talking about it. Price wise, our farm commodities are, you don't pay the true price. You're not paying externalities, and there's
Unbelievable.
So
we're going to wrap up this segment with Heidi Montrose. Be sure to look her up. Her books are amazing. We are going to come back in a few minutes. We're going to have Matt Blumenthal, who is a CT House representative. I'm going to get the number wrong, but I will tell you when he gets on. Just to let you know, in the last 3 minutes of the show, we've got to call in 203-661-5051. You can win tickets to movies at the Avon Theater, a bag of popcorn, and I know you're dying for this, a t-shirt that says Trevor and Friends. So call in at a couple minutes before the top of the hour. And again, the number is 203-661-5051. We'll be back with you in just a couple minutes.